My name is Ethan, I'm 29 years old, and I live on the outskirts of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Nothing fancy. Just a small room above the garage of Mr. and Mrs. Garcia, an older couple who treat me like their grandson. I've been working for 2 years at a hand car wash, the kind of place where it's still rags and soap, no machines. It's not glamorous, but it pays enough to keep me going. I didn't finish college. I dropped out in my second year. I thought I'd figure things out later, but later turned into still nothing. I don't see myself as a failure, just someone who hasn't found his thing yet. It was a Tuesday morning, and the heat was already kicking in, as usual. I was polishing a white pickup truck when I heard tires crunching behind me. I didn't turn around at first, but when I did to greet the customer, she was already stepping out of her vehicle, a sleek black Lexus, spotless like it just rolled off the lot. I thought, what's someone with a car like that doing here? She was dressed in black leggings, a crisp white blouse tucked in perfectly, and dark sunglasses. Her hair was tied back, her steps confident, self-assured. She looked like a businesswoman. She walked up, handed me the keys without a smile. "Can I wait here?" she asked in a calm voice. "Sure," I replied. "It doesn't take us more than 30-40 minutes. She nodded and walked over to the bench by the old soda machine. She sat down, crossed her legs, and, to my surprise, didn't pull out her phone. She just watched the shop, watched me. I felt her eyes on me several times while I worked. It wasn't uncomfortable, it was like she was really seeing me, like she was waiting for something, but in no rush. When I finished drying the car and walked over to hand her the keys, she stood up, approached me, and looked me straight in the eye. "I don't usually talk to strangers," she said. I tensed, thinking she was about to complain about something. But then she gave a small smile and said, "Do you have a girlfriend?" I froze, like someone had dumped a bucket of ice on me in the middle of July. All I could manage was, "No, not right now." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small black card. It just had her name, Claire, no last name, no company, just a phone number. "If you ever want to grab coffee with someone who sometimes breaks her own rules, text me." And without another word, she got into her Lexus and drove off. I stood there, holding that card like it might vanish if I blinked. My coworker, Mike, gave me a side eye and said, "What was that all about?" I didn't answer, just tucked the card away like it was a secret. That night I couldn't sleep, not out of nerves, but something else. Claire had seen me, not as the guy washing cars, but as someone worth talking to. And though I didn't know it yet, that moment would change everything. I kept her card all week, not in my wallet, but in the drawer of the nightstand by my bed. Every night, I'd take it out, stare at it, as if looking long enough would reveal some hidden meaning. It just said Claire with a handwritten number in confident, unadorned script. I thought 1,000 things. What if it's a joke? What if she has a partner and was just bored? What if she was just being nice to someone like me? But the way she looked at me, that wasn't just politeness. It was something else. 2 nights passed. On the third, I couldn't hold back anymore. I typed, "Hey, it's Ethan. We met at the car wash. I know this is random, but I wanted to thank you for that moment. I don't usually talk to strangers either, but you made my day." I reread it 20 times, hesitated, then hit send. I almost regretted it the second I saw the 2 blue checkmarks. Nothing. An hour passed, then 2. I checked my phone every 5 minutes like an idiot. The next morning, still no reply. I was convinced I'd messed up. But just as I was about to delete her number to stop tempting myself, my phone buzzed. A message, "Coffee. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Green Bean Cafe. Don't be late." That was it. No emojis, no questions, straight to the point, and that's why I liked it even more. I got there 10 minutes early, sat near the window in a corner with exposed brick and soft music. It was one of those cafes where everyone seems to be writing a novel or planning a startup. I felt out of place in my car wash shirt and jeans with wax stains, but I was there. Claire walked in at 3 o'clock on the dot. No sunglasses, no makeup, just simple jeans, a beige blouse, and her hair down. Still impeccable, but more real. She saw me, nodded. "Looks like you showed up," she said, sitting across from me. No handshake, no greeting, just that. "You're 29, right?" I nodded. "No kids, no crazy ex?" I laughed, a bit confused. "Nah, just me, living alone. Well, above an old couple's garage, but yeah, alone." She took a sip of her coffee, watching me with those eyes that seemed to scan everything. "What did you want to be before?" she asked. "Before what?" "Before you ended up cleaning cars." She didn't say it with mockery, just raw honesty. "I wanted to start my own mobile detailing service," I said. "A van, my tools, going to people's houses, making their cars spotless inside and out without them leaving home." "Why didn't you do it?" "Fear? Money? Not knowing where to start. All of the above, maybe." She didn't reply, just looked at me for a long moment, like she was searching for something beyond my words. "You're not doing bad," she said finally. "You're just stuck, like a lot of people. But you haven't given up. I can tell." She caught me off guard because she was right. And just when I thought she couldn't surprise me more, she lowered her voice and said something I didn't expect. "I'm not judging you, Ethan. I'm just trying to figure out why you make me feel something different." I wanted to respond, but I didn't. I didn't need to. The conversation lightened up after that. We talked about music, street food, she was into barbecue tacos, I was more of a carnitas guy, and silly childhood memories. Claire laughed at my stories about washing neighbors' bikes for $1, and I was surprised to learn she used to sell snow cones on her street corner as a kid. She didn't seem like a businesswoman then. She seemed human. We finished our coffee. She glanced at her phone. 26 minutes, she said, standing up. "But I don't usually have a second coffee unless the first was worth it." She walked away without looking back, no kiss, no big smile, just a small gesture. Enough. That night, I didn't expect her to text, but 3 days later, when I'd almost convinced myself it was just a fleeting moment, my phone buzzed. "Good coffee, better company than expected. Let's ruin a sandwich together. Tomorrow." I replied with a yes faster than I wanted to admit. The next day we met at a small torta shop downtown, a simple, family-run place, nothing fancy. I got there first, as usual, scanning the crowd for her. When I saw her, she was in athletic wear, no makeup, hair in a high ponytail. Still, she walked in like she owned the place. "You're punctual," she said with a faint smile. "But don't think that earns you extra avocado." We sat down, and between bites and jokes, we fell into a strange rhythm. We weren't friends, we weren't a couple, we were something in between. She'd send me memes at 2 a.m., and I'd reply with goofy voice notes to make her laugh. But the most curious thing was what we didn't say. I didn't ask about her past, and she didn't ask about mine, like we both knew some things weren't ready to be touched. Until one night, she broke that silence. She showed up at my place in her Lexus, unannounced. I got in without asking questions. We drove 10 minutes to a small park with old benches and flickering streetlights, the sound of crickets in the background. We stayed in the car, windows cracked. Then she said it. "I don't do this." She gestured between us. "This, letting someone in." I stayed quiet, not wanting to interrupt. "You probably think I'm strong, that I've got everything under control, that I'm one of those women who doesn't need anyone." I looked at her slowly. "I think you've been through things you don't always show, but I can sense them." "That's a nice way of saying I'm full of walls." "It's an honest way of saying you have reasons to protect yourself." She turned her face, her profile tense under the dim light. "I was married for 5 years. Found him with the woman who helped around the house. I tried to fix it, but I gave up in the end. I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. That was 2 years ago. Since then, I work, I travel, I laugh, but some days it feels like there's a hole in my chest." She turned to me. "You know what I mean?" I looked at her. I wanted to say yes, but I didn't lie. I haven't been married. No one's betrayed me like that. But I do know what it's like to imagine a future and watch it break in front of you. There was a long pause. She turned down the stereo, though the music was barely audible. "Don't you ever wonder why two people so different end up in the same place at the same time?" "Yeah," I said after thinking it over. "I think sometimes life puts someone in front of you to show you what could be possible, even if you're not ready yet." She looked at me, not like before. This time, she was searching for something, maybe something she didn't want to find. I took her hand slowly. She didn't pull away right away. 3 seconds passed, then she withdrew it gently. "Don't fall for me, Ethan," she said, her voice low. "I've already ruined too many things." It wasn't drama, it was real. I didn't respond with promises, just said, "I'm not here to demand anything. I'm just here." She looked at me, smiled, and whispered, barely audible, "Thanks for not running." After that night, Claire disappeared. No announcement, no fight, no explanation, just stopped texting. For the first 2 days, I told myself she was busy. Her life was more complicated than mine: business, meetings, employees. Me, I was still detailing cars, smiling at customers while replaying that park conversation in my head. By the 3rd day, I knew something was off. I wanted to text, call, even send a meme like I used to, but I didn't. I didn't want to seem needy or pushy. So I waited, and it hurt more than I cared to admit. Not because of what we had, since we never named it, but because of what was starting to grow between us, clumsy steps and long silences included. At work, I played it cool. Mike, my coworker, asked a couple of times if I was okay. "Yeah, all good," I said, avoiding his eyes. On the 6th day, I was finishing up a red Mustang when I heard him shout from across the shop, "Ethan, someone's here for you. She's in the black Lexus." I froze, towel in hand, heart racing. I walked to the lot's entrance, and there she was, leaning against her Lexus. No sunglasses, no perfect hair, just a gray hoodie, leggings, and a messy bun. She looked tired, not from lack of sleep, but from herself. "Hey," I said softly, afraid to spook her if I spoke too loud. "Hey," she replied, lifting her gaze. A few seconds passed in silence. Then she said, "I was driving around for a while. I wasn't sure I'd actually stop here." I nodded, not pushing, just waiting. After that night, when I told you about my ex, something shifted, and it scared me. A lot. "I get it," I said, "more than you think." She gave a half-smile. "Can we talk somewhere else?" We got into our separate cars and drove to a quiet spot by the Rio Grande, a hidden park with tall trees and the sound of water nearby. We sat on a bench, Claire's hands clasped in her lap, elbows tight to her sides, like she was shielding herself from the world. "I didn't lie to you," she started. "But I also didn't expect to feel so comfortable with you. That's the problem, Ethan. You're patient, you're kind, you see me, and I struggle to trust that." I stayed quiet, knowing she needed to keep going. My last relationship broke me. Not just my trust in him, but in myself, in my own choices. Her fingers trembled slightly. When something starts to matter, I sabotage it. I push it away before it can hurt me. Her words hurt, but more than that, it pained me to know how real they were. "I've doubted myself my whole life," I said gently. "I've let fear stop me more times than I can count, so I get wanting something but pushing it away." She looked at me, her eyes shining, not with tears, but with truth. "I'm sorry for disappearing." "Thanks for coming back," I said. We sat in silence, the kind that doesn't weigh you down, just lets you breathe. "I miss talking to you," she said quietly. "Me too," I replied. For the first time, her smile was full, unguarded, real. I took her hand, and this time, she didn't let go. That afternoon by the river didn't end in a kiss. There were no hugs, no promises, no "I'll text you tomorrow." But when Claire said, "Good night, Ethan," there was something different in her voice. Not a goodbye, but a soft pause, like we were finally breathing in sync. That night, I slept better, not because I had certainty, but because, for the first time in a long time, I felt something like hope. Not the kind that demands, but the kind that settles in quietly, asking for nothing. Days passed. We didn't see each other every day, we didn't need to. She'd send me photos of her morning coffee, and I'd reply with a silly voice note or a dumb meme. Slowly, without realizing it, we started building something, not out of urgency, but from the everyday. One Tuesday afternoon, she showed up at my place with a bottle of red wine and sushi from a place I thought was too pricey. She kicked off her shoes at the door and sat on the floor like she'd done it forever. "Today, I don't want to talk about anything heavy," she said. "Just eat, drink, and laugh a bit. Deal? Only if we can watch bad 90s action movies with pointless car chases and cheesy one-liners." "Perfect," she said. "You're in good hands." That night we laughed like teenagers, spilled soy sauce, and toasted to silly things. For the first time, she fell asleep on my couch. Nothing more happened, but in that quiet, in her staying, there was more intimacy than any physical gesture. There was trust. From that point, things started to shift. Not dramatically, not with labels, just naturally. We saw each other once or twice a week. Sometimes we cooked together. Well, Claire cooked, and I tried not to mess it up. Other times, we'd walk along the riverfront or wander through flea markets without buying anything. There was no rush, and in a world where everyone's chasing quick feelings, that felt different. It felt real. One afternoon, while I was wiping my hands on a rag at the car wash, Claire showed up unannounced. She was in jeans, a white t-shirt and a light sweater, no makeup, just herself, calm and present. "I was nearby," she said. "Wanted to see how your day was going." It caught me off guard, but I liked it. We chatted in the parking lot for a bit. I showed her the car I was detailing, and we talked about weekend plans. Just when I thought she was about to leave, she hit me with a question. "What would you need to start your mobile detailing business?" It threw me. "Like you said before, about wanting your own van, your tools, your client. What's holding you back?" I looked at her, and for the first time, instead of saying money or fear, I answered honestly. "Myself." She nodded. "I thought you'd say that." Without another word, she handed me a small notebook. On the cover, it said plan. "Fill it up," she said. "Not for me, for you." That night, I opened the notebook and started writing, messy, unsure, no clue where to begin. But I wrote the name my service would have, the tools I'd need, who I could pitch to first. Without realizing it, I stopped dreaming about someday. That day was coming. The notebook Claire gave me wasn't magic, didn't have answers, but each blank page asked me a question. "Are you going to keep waiting?" So I started, slowly, not quite knowing what I was doing but doing it anyway. I scoured Facebook Marketplace for used tools, watched YouTube videos on starting a mobile detailing business, checked prices, jotted down contacts. One Saturday morning, I asked my boss if I could take weekends off to try something new. He looked at me for a second, then nodded without many questions. "You've earned the chance to try, Ethan," he said. That gave me more strength than he probably realized. I found an old white van. Nothing fancy, rusted doors, smelled like damp carpet, but the engine worked, and that was enough. Claire helped me clean it out. She showed up with gloves, trash bags, and a playlist blaring from her phone. She got down on her knees with me, scrubbing dust, untangling wires. "I'm not here to help you," she said once, smiling. "I'm here so you can help yourself." That stuck with me. For a week, we worked on the van in the evenings, fixed the lights, added simple shelves, rigged up a small water pump. Then came the flyers. I designed them on a friend's computer, printed 100 in black and white. Nothing fancy, just my name, a number, and a promise. Detailing at your doorstep. I stuck one on a gas station window, another at the community center where my neighbor went. Claire set up 3 coffee meetings with people she knew to give me visibility. As she put it, my first client came by chance. A woman who ran a dog grooming business, her car reeking of wet fur. I made that car sparkle, and she paid me double, asking for 5 business cards. That day I got 3 more calls. It wasn't a miracle, didn't go viral, but it was steady. Real. Like everything we'd been building. One Saturday, I had my first full day, 4 jobs back to back, all nearby, all from word of mouth. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for my life to start. I was living it. I was vacuuming the back seat of a car in a San Pedro neighborhood when I looked up and saw her, Claire, standing by her Lexus with a coffee in hand. She hadn't told me she was coming. "What are you doing here?" I asked, wiping my hands on a towel. "Had a meeting nearby," she said. "Wanted to check on the guy who used to wash cars behind a gas station." "It wasn't a gas station," I shot back, and she smirked. I looked at her, really looked. No heels, no fancy bag, just jeans, a t-shirt, hair loose. Not the woman from that first day, but Claire, present, warm. "I didn't just come to watch," she said. "I came to remember why I gave you my number that day." That disarmed me. She walked around the van, eyeing my makeshift setup, the order I tried to keep. "You did it, Ethan," she said. "Not yet." "Yes, you did. This isn't a dream. It's yours." I was speechless. Then she stepped closer, her usual confidence softened. She pulled a small key from her bag and placed it in my palm. "You don't have to use it," she said, almost whispering. "I just want you to know you're not a passerby in my life." Her eyes were calm, tired, real. I didn't say anything, just closed my hand around the key, and it was enough. That night, there were no celebrations, no toasts, no grand declarations. Claire came over with a bag of sweet bread and 2 bottles of ginger ale. We climbed up to the roof, like we sometimes did when we wanted to talk without walls, ceilings, or the world getting in the way. She kicked off her shoes and sat beside me. The sky was clear, and the lights of Albuquerque flickered in the distance, like the city was breathing with us. We didn't say much at first, just ate the bread with our hands, sharing a cold bottle and listening to the crickets. After a while, she rested her head on my shoulder. I leaned my cheek against her hair. In that moment, without anything more, I knew. She was staying, not just physically, though sometimes she'd crash on my couch or cook on my tiny stove like it was hers. She was staying for real. No longer the woman who dropped by occasionally or set boundaries with lines like, "Don't fall for me." Now she was just Claire, and I was Ethan. No labels, no walls. Weeks passed like that, a routine without being routine. Sometimes I'd show up at her apartment and find post-it notes on the fridge, clumsy doodles of coffee cups or hearts. Other times, she'd come by the shop and sit on a bench, watching me detail cars like it was something worth respecting. We started talking about things that used to hurt. I told her about my dad, how he left when I was 9, how I swore I'd never rely on anyone but ended up scared to trust. Claire didn't say, "I'm sorry." She just squeezed my hand hard, and that was enough. She opened up about her first year after the divorce, the nights she cried without knowing why, the days she dressed up just to feel strong. We were showing each other without makeup, without armor, and in that raw space, something grew. But we also learned patience, because neither of us was easy. Some days, one of us would shut down, answer in monosyllables, or need space without explaining. And still, neither of us left point one Sunday afternoon, while we were cleaning the van together. It wasn't just mine anymore, it was our rig, as she called it. Claire stopped, looked at me and said, "Do you realize?" "Realize what?" "That this isn't a game anymore. We're not testing the waters. We're living it." I didn't know what to say, so I hugged her, not with desperate passion, but with gratitude. As she hugged me back, I understood something. Not all love arrives shouting. Some love comes with sweet bread, fridge notes, and the way someone watches you work with soap on your hand. 4 months. That's what it had been since that afternoon by the river. For months of slow steps, shared silences, and deep talks that didn't chase answers. Just companionship. We never said we were boyfriend and girlfriend, never posted about it online, never talked about making it official. But we knew. Something real was taking shape. My business kept growing, one car at a time. It didn't need to be huge, it just needed to be mine. I had regular clients, referrals, and a list of names scribbled on the back of a notebook that had no blank pages left. Claire, meanwhile, started delegating more at her agency. She wasn't working 16-hour days anymore. She gave herself permission to breathe. Sometimes we'd work together in my tiny apartment, each on our laptops, not needing to say a word. That was the magic, finding peace in just being there. One random afternoon, while we were making improvised tacos, she was the chef, I was the clumsy assistant. She looked at me and said, "I never thought I'd end up here." "In the kitchen?" I teased. "No, here with you, in this kind of peace." I went quiet, not because I had nothing to say, but because I didn't need to. She set down the spoon, walked over, and rested her forehead against my chest. "It took me a long time to realize love doesn't have to hurt to be deep," she said. I hugged her gently, like you do when you know the other person could break, but also heal. That night there was no wine, no music. Just us, the stove, the smell of warm tortillas, and the kitchen clock ticking without hurry. Before bed, Claire took off her earrings, set her phone face down, and said, almost in a whisper, "You know what I love most about you? You didn't save me. You waited for me." I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and knew we didn't need more. No rings, no forever promises. Just this, day by day, washing cars, sharing sweet bread, tending to what we'd built, what no one else saw coming. Because real love doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just stays.